We built a social media MVP in low-code, people are using it, and so far we haven't hit any hard limitations. I'm starting with this one on purpose, because this single fact already breaks most assumptions people have about low-code. Hi, my name is Marcin, I build MVPs for founders who want to move fast without burning their budget, and whenever low-code comes up, the conversation almost immediately goes into fear mode. Performance, scaling, limits, things that are supposed to break sooner or later. And to be clear, those concerns are not stupid, they are valid, but they are just very often asked at the wrong moment. Because when we started this project, none of those things were our biggest problem. At the beginning, the real question wasn't, will this scale to 1 million users? The real question was much simpler. Will anyone use this at all? And this question sounds simple, but it's brutal. Because until real users show up, everything else is just a guessing. Your roadmap is guessing, your feature list is guessing, even your architecture decisions are guessing. As a founder, you want certainty. But early on, certainty is fake. The only real signal comes from people actually using the product. That's why building the wrong thing is so dangerous. Not because it looks bad, but because it quietly burns time and money while telling you nothing useful. We didn't know what the core loop would be. We didn't know which features would actually matter. We didn't know what people would completely ignore. And that's a very uncomfortable place to be as founder. At the same time, you are being told two completely opposite things. On one side, you hear move fast, validate, don't overbuild. On the other side, you hear be careful, choose the right tech, don't paint yourself into a corner. And if you are not technical or you don't have a strong tech co-founder, this tension gets even worse. Every decision feels permanent. Every choice feels like a trap. That was exactly the situation we were in. So we started thinking about how to build this MVP. We didn't start with technology. We started with a risk. And the biggest risk wasn't the technical debt. It wasn't performance. It wasn't scaling. The biggest risk was spending months building something that nobody actually wants. This is where a lot of people misunderstand what an MVP really is. They think an MVP is a smaller version of the final product. It's not. The job of an MVP is to reduce uncertainty as fast and safely as possible. And that's where low-code enters the picture. Not as a shortcut, not as a hack, and definitely not as a cheap development. Low-code is about making early decisions reversible. Reversible decisions give you a breathing room. They let you move without betting your company on a single guess. Early-stage startups don't die because of bad code. They die because of bad assumptions that go untested for too long. Reversible is a word I care a lot about. Founders don't usually fail because they make bad decisions. They fail because they lock themselves into big decisions too early. With low code, the logic was simple. If we are wrong, we want to find out quickly. If users don't show up, we don't want to regret 6 or 9 months of custom development. If the idea needs to change, we don't want sunk of cost to block us. And before going further, let's be very clear about what low-code actually means. Low-code lives in the middle. You still move much faster than with custom development, but you keep more flexibility than with pure no-code tools. A good mental model here is a slider. On one side, you have speed. On the other side, you have control. Low-code lets you push that slider towards speed without completely giving up control. You still have structure, you still have logic, but you avoid building every single detail from scratch before you even know if it matters. For a founder, this is not a technical trade-off. It's a risk trade-off. In our case, this trade-off made sense. We needed to build a real product, not prototype, not a clickable mock. We needed real users doing real things. And that's exactly what we built. This was a real social app. People sign up, they went through onboarding, they started interacting with each other. And that's when things got interesting. People used the product in ways that we didn't fully expect. Some features were used way more than we expected, and others were almost completely ignored. But what really surprised us was which parts of the app people kept coming back to. The engagement loop looked very different than what we had designed on paper. Actions we thought were secondary turned out to drive retention, and some core ideas barely matter at all. This kind of feedback is impossible to simulate. You only see it when the product is real. And this is where most MVP discussions break down. A lot of decisions happen in people's heads, on whiteboards, in Figma files, but real users always surprise you. This is one of the main reasons founders choose low-code early on. Not because it's trendy, but because early-stage products are full of unknowns. You don't have a fixed scope, you don't know which features are truly critical, and you almost always care about time. Time to first users, time to first feedback, time to learning. In our case, low-code lets us keep decisions open while we were answering those questions. Instead of defending the first idea, we tested it. Instead of freezing decisions early, we kept iterating. And yes, this was built in Flutterflow. We expected that at some point the tool would push back, like performance issues, some features becoming impossible to implement, because that's the story you usually hear. You will hit the limits, it's just a matter of time. But so far, we haven't. And I want to be very precise here. I'm not saying low code has no limits. I am not saying you will never hit them. I'm saying limits are not guaranteed. This is uncomfortable for people who want clear rules. They want a checklist, they want a promise, but really products don't work like that. Low code doesn't promise success. It doesn't promise scaling. What it promises is options. It promises that if there is a wall, you will find out it earlier, before you are overcommitted, before you burn too much money and time. And that distinction matters a lot. Because even if 6 months from now we suddenly hit serious constraint, that doesn't mean that was a mistake. That would mean the MVP did its job. At that point, a rewrite wouldn't be an emotional. It wouldn't be a panic move. It would be a calm, informed decision. We would exactly know what needs to be built, which parts matter, which parts don't. And that's completely different situation than rewriting something based on poorly guessing. That is also where many founders misunderstand the idea of lock-in. They hear low code and they think that it's a dead end. Like once you choose it, you're stuck forever. That's not how this works in practice. You are not locking yourself into a tool. You are buying time. Time to learn, time to observe users, time to make better decisions. Better decisions build on each other. Each thing you learn makes the next decision easier. Each real insight removes one future risk. And that's why time matters more than perfection early on. Because early on, time is the only thing that you don't get back. Now, let's zoom out a bit. Because this isn't really a story about Flutterflow. It's a story about timing and decision making. Most mistakes around low code happens because founders ask the wrong thing. They ask, will this scale? But at MVP stage, the better question is, what is the biggest risk in my business right now? If your biggest risk is performance at massive scale, then low-code is probably the wrong tool. But if your biggest risk is that you are building something nobody wants, then optimizing for future scale is often the wrong move. In this situation, speed matters more, flexibility matters more, the ability to change your mind matters more. And that's the context in which low-code makes sense. Not as a replacement for custom development, but as a stage. Looking back at our case, it clearly fell into the learning and speed bucket. We needed answers, not perfection. Perfection too early is just another form of procrastination. It feels productive, but it delays learning. MVP exists to move learning forward, not to look impressive. And today, that stage is still working. Users are there, the product is alive, we are learning, and importantly, we are not blocked. That outcome doesn't get talked about enough, because it's not dramatic. There is no failure story, there is no big crash. Sometimes things just work well enough, and that's not the best for hot takes. But it's very real for founders. So if you are watching this and you are on early stage, especially without a tech co-founder, here is the takeaway I want you to remember. You don't need to eliminate every possible future problem before you build your MVP. You need to eliminate the biggest current uncertainty. Sometimes this means full custom development. Sometimes it means something else. The mistake is turning technology into a belief system. Low-code is not good or bad. It depends on the situation, and if you are unsure whether it makes sense for your specific product, your constraints and your stage, that's normal. That's not something you solve by watching one video. That's exactly what discovery calls are for. Talking through your idea, your risk, your trade-offs. No hype, no pitch, just clarity. And if there is one thought I want you to live with, it's this. An MVP is not about building the smallest possible product. It's about building the fastest path to real learning. Low code is just one way to do that. Not always the right one, not always the wrong one, but what matters is choosing tools that fit your stage, your risk and your reality as founder. If this video helped you think more clearly about that decision, then it did its job. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.